Hey, this story is about a young black woman's battle with depression and loneliness. If you want to support important stories like this, please hit subscribe and like. Let's dive in. Amara's eyes fluttered open to the faint light leaking through the cracked blinds. The bedroom was silent except for the soft hum of the city outside, distant sirens fading into the early morning. She lay still for a moment, her chest tight, the weight of another day pressing down before it even began. The pill bottle on the nightstand caught her gaze, a small plastic container with the label sertraline. She reached for it hesitantly, her fingers trembling slightly. The bitter taste of the medication had become a morning ritual she neither welcomed nor despised. Just necessary. Like breathing. Her phone buzzed softly on the dresser. A message from her mother, short and perfunctory. "Did you take your meds?" Amara's throat tightened. She typed a quick reply. Yes. She didn't want to talk. Not yet. The apartment was cold, though the thermostat insisted it was 70 degrees. She pulled the thin blanket tighter around her shoulders and sat up slowly, legs dangling off the side of the bed. The room was cluttered, half-empty coffee cups, textbooks stacked unevenly, scattered clothes. A reminder of the chaos she felt inside. In the mirror, her reflection looked back tired, eyes rimmed red from nights spent crying. The dark circles betrayed her better than any words could. At 22, most of her friends seemed to have their lives figured out, jobs, relationships, plans for the future. But Amara felt stuck, trapped in a fog she couldn't navigate. She wrapped a scarf around her neck and shuffled to the kitchen, where a pot of cold coffee awaited. The sound of the kettle filled the silence as she tried to will herself to move, to do something. Anything. Her phone buzzed again, this time a notification from an online support group she joined a month ago. "You're not alone," the message read. Amara stared at the screen, feeling the familiar mix of hope and shame. Hope that someone understood. Shame that she needed help at all. She scrolled through posts, stories of others battling anxiety, depression, the pressure to just be happy. The words resonated deeply. She typed a short message herself. Some days are harder than others. Then she put the phone down, tears suddenly spilling over. Her mind drifted back to last week, when she'd missed class again, ignored calls from friends, and spent hours just lying in bed. Her counselor had suggested adjusting the medication, but she feared the changes. Would it make things worse? Would she lose herself? The loneliness was the hardest part. Not just the silence, but the feeling that no one truly saw her pain. Sometimes she wondered if it was all in her head, or if she was simply weak. But then the crying would come, raw and uncontrollable, leaving her drained and hollow. As the day wore on, Amara forced herself to shower, dress, and step outside for the first time. The city was buzzing, people rushing, cars honking, life moving on without her. She wrapped her arms around herself, the cold air biting through her jacket. At the bus stop, a teenage boy smiled at her, a small gesture that stirred something inside. For a fleeting moment, she felt connected, human. But the moment passed, and the familiar numbness returned like a shadow. She thought about calling her best friend, but the words stuck in her throat. She didn't want to be a burden, didn't want to explain the heaviness she carried. So she waited, alone with her thoughts and the quiet ache in her chest. Back home, the night settled in with a crushing stillness. Amara sat by the window, watching the city lights blink on one by one. She took her medication again, swallowing the pills with a bitter gulp. Somewhere deep down, she wished for a light, a reason to keep going. The phone lay silent on the kitchen counter, its screen dark. Amara stared at it, fingers hovering but never quite reaching to press the call button. She wanted to hear a friendly voice, someone who could remind her she wasn't invisible. But the walls she'd built around herself felt impenetrable today. Her mother's texts were sparse, clipped, "Remember your appointment tomorrow." That was all. There was love beneath the words, but it felt buried under layers of unspoken frustration and exhaustion. Amara knew her mother was struggling too, juggling 2 jobs and trying to keep the household afloat. But that knowledge didn't ease the loneliness. Her roommate, Jasmine, had left a note on the fridge, "Out with friends. Call if you need anything." Amara chuckled bitterly. Need anything felt like a hollow offer. Jasmine didn't know what Amara needed. No one really did. She sat down at the small kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of lukewarm tea. The house felt emptier than usual. Memories of laughter and late-night talks with Jasmine flickered through her mind. But lately, Amara had been retreating, afraid her darkness would drag others down. She pulled out a worn journal from the drawer. Writing had been her refuge once, pages filled with poetry and dreams. Now, the words felt heavy, as if they carried the weight of every tear she'd shed. "I want to be okay. I want to wake up without this ache." But some days, it feels like the world is underwater, and I'm sinking. The pen trembled in her hand. She wiped away a tear before it fell on the page. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Jasmine. We miss you. Let's talk tomorrow. The simple words felt like a lifeline. Amara typed back slowly. I'll try. Later that evening, she found herself scrolling through old photos, smiling faces, carefree moments. The contrast was painful. How had she fallen so far from that girl who dreamed of making a difference, who believed in love and hope? The medication dulled some of the pain, but it couldn't erase the isolation. She longed for genuine connection, someone to say, I see you. You're not alone. But the fear of being a burden kept her silent. As night deepened, the city outside pulsed with life, music, voices, footsteps, while inside, Amara curled under the covers, whispering a prayer for strength. The sun filtered weakly through the curtains, casting a pale glow on the worn carpet. Amara lay on the couch, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Jasmine's message from last night lingered on the screen, but she still hadn't replied. A sudden knock at the door startled her. She hesitated, then stood slowly, heart pounding. Opening it, she found Jasmine standing there, holding a takeout bag and wearing a concerned smile. Hey, you okay? Jasmine asked softly, stepping inside without waiting for an answer. Amara swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. I'm tired, she whispered. Jasmine nodded, sitting beside her on the couch. I brought your favorite fried chicken and mac and cheese. Thought maybe we could eat together. The simple gesture cracked something inside Amara. She nodded, tears brimming. For the first time in days, she felt seen. As they ate, Jasmine listened without judgment while Amara's words spilled out, her fears, the crushing weight of loneliness, the fog of medication. I don't know who I am anymore, Amara admitted, voice breaking. The pills help, but sometimes I feel like I'm just surviving, not living. Jasmine reached out, squeezing her hand. You're not alone, okay? We'll get through this together. The evening stretched on, filled with quiet conversations and shared silence. For a moment, the darkness seemed less suffocating. But as Jasmine left, the emptiness crept back in, and Amara wondered if she could hold on to this fragile hope. Days slipped by in a blur of muted colors and quiet desperation. Amara found herself caught between moments of fragile hope and crushing despair. Jasmine's visit lingered in her mind like a distant light, a reminder that connection was still possible. But shadows from the past clawed at her, threatening to pull her back into the dark. One rainy afternoon, Amara sat on the edge of her bed, staring at a faded photograph of her family. It showed a younger version of herself, smiling between her mother and older brother. The memory brought a bittersweet ache. Her brother, Malik, had left home 2 years ago after a fight that never got resolved. Their father had passed away when Amara was a child, and since then, the family had struggled to stay together. Her mother worked long hours, leaving Amara feeling both responsible and invisible. She picked up her phone and dialed Malik's number. It rang several times before going to voicemail. She hesitated, then left a message. Hey, it's me. I just wanted to say I miss you. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she hung up, the silence answering back. Later, she sat by the window watching the rain fall, each drop a reminder of how isolated she felt. The medication dulled her pain, but it didn't heal the fractures inside her heart. Her counselor had asked her to explore these feelings, to confront the past. But the memories were sharp, and the wounds still fresh. That night, as thunder rumbled outside, Amara lay awake, haunted by a recurring nightmare, a storm of voices accusing her of being weak, unworthy, alone. She clutched the pillow, trying to breathe through the panic rising in her chest. Somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered, "Keep fighting. You're not done yet." The days felt heavier now, each one dragging behind the other like a shadow she couldn't shake. Amara often found herself staring blankly at the ceiling, trying to summon the energy to face the world outside her apartment. But the silence around her was deafening. Her phone remained mostly silent, a constant reminder of the distance growing between her and those she once held close. Jasmine's messages became fewer, and Amara felt guilty for retreating so deeply. She wanted to reach out, but the words never came. One afternoon, her mother stopped by unexpectedly. Amara had been curled in a ball on the couch, staring at the TV but not really watching. The knock at the door was sharp, breaking her trance. Her mother's face was tired but softened when she saw Amara. "Honey, you haven't been answering your calls. Are you all right?" Amara hesitated. The wall she'd built around herself cracked for a moment. "I'm trying," she whispered. Her mother sat beside her, reaching out to hold her hand. "I know it's hard, but you don't have to carry this alone." Tears welled up again, and Amara allowed herself to lean into the comfort, even if just for a moment. Later that night, alone again, she reflected on the fragile bonds keeping her tethered to hope. The pills were part of the battle, but so was the human connection she was too scared to fully embrace. Amara woke to the heavy gray sky, rain tapping softly against her window. The familiar ache in her chest felt sharper today, a dull but persistent reminder of the battles waging inside her mind. She reached over to the nightstand, her hand trembling as she grabbed the pill bottle. The bitter taste of the antidepressants settled on her tongue, but they offered only a brief reprieve. At work, a small bookstore she had started a few months ago to distract herself, she tried to lose herself among the stacks of books, but the fog never lifted completely. Customers' voices blurred, and her thoughts spiraled. The weight of exhaustion made her movements slow, her smile forced. During her lunch break, she sat alone on a bench outside. The rain had stopped, but the air remained heavy. A young man approached, holding a coffee. "Mind if I sit?" he asked softly. Amara nodded, unsure how to respond. He introduced himself as Malik, a volunteer from a local community group. They talked briefly about books and music, and for a moment, Amara felt the flicker of genuine connection. But as the conversation deepened, her fears crept back. What if she wasn't enough? What if she was too broken to be understood? Malik smiled gently. "You don't have to be perfect. Just you." The words echoed long after he left. That night, Amara journaled again, trying to hold onto the small light Malik's kindness had sparked. The silent battles within her continued, but maybe, just maybe, she was not completely alone. The morning sun struggled through the gray clouds as Amara prepared for her day. The small bookstore had become both a refuge and a reminder of the life she wanted to rebuild. But beneath her careful composure, the shadows lingered. Malik's words from the park replayed in her mind. "You don't have to be perfect. Just you." Simple, yet profound. She clung to them like a lifeline. That afternoon, Jasmine stopped by again, sensing the shift. "You seem different," she said, smiling gently. Amara managed a weak smile in return. They sat together on the worn sofa, sipping tea. Jasmine listened as Amara shared fragments of her struggle, the loneliness, the fear, the hope. For the first time in months, Amara allowed herself to believe that healing was possible. Later, alone in her room, she found herself humming a song she hadn't heard in years, a melody her mother used to sing. Her phone buzzed. A message from Malik. "If you ever want to talk, I'm here." A small smile touched her lips. Maybe the darkness wasn't endless. Weeks had passed since that rainy afternoon at the park, yet the memory of Malik's kindness remained a steady light in Amara's days. She found herself slowly stepping out of the shadows that had engulfed her for so long. Her mornings began earlier now, the heaviness in her chest easing just enough to breathe deeply and face the day. At the bookstore, she greeted customers with more genuine smiles, even if the struggle never fully disappeared. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Malik stopped by the shop unexpectedly. He carried a small bouquet of wildflowers and wore a shy smile. "I thought these might brighten your day," he said softly. Amara's heart fluttered in a way she hadn't felt in a long time, a mix of nervousness and hope. They talked for hours, sharing stories of their pasts, fears, and dreams. Malik never pressured her, simply offering steady support and understanding. For the first time, Amara dared to imagine a future where she wasn't defined by her depression but by the strength she found in confronting it. That night, she penned a new entry in her journal. "I am still broken, but I am also healing. Maybe that's enough for now." The morning sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds, casting long shadows across Amara's bedroom. She lay still, the weight pressing down on her chest heavier than usual. It was one of those mornings where even the smallest movements felt like monumental tasks. The pills she took each day, the little capsules that were supposed to help, seemed powerless against the storm raging inside her mind. She forced herself to sit up, fingers trembling as she reached for her phone. Messages from Malik blinked on the screen, each one filled with gentle encouragement and warmth. But today, Amara felt too distant, too hollow to respond. Dragging herself to the bathroom, she stared into the mirror, barely recognizing the tired eyes staring back at her. The reflection seemed fragile, lost. She whispered, I'm trying to hold on." But the words felt empty. At the bookstore, her sanctuary and workplace, Amara moved like a ghost among the shelves. Customers smiled and spoke to her, but their voices blurred, melting into an indistinct hum. The vibrant colors of book covers seemed muted, as if seen through a fogged window. Her hand shook as she arranged the books, the words in her head chaotic and overwhelming. "Amara? You okay?" A customer's concerned voice cut through the haze. She blinked and forced a weak smile. "Yes, I'm fine. Thank you." But inside, she was unraveling. By afternoon, she found herself withdrawing, retreating to a quiet corner of the store. She pulled out a small notebook, her journal, and tried to write, but the words refused to come. Instead, her mind replayed a relentless loop of self-doubt and fear. The clock ticked loudly, marking every second that passed with unbearable slowness. When the store finally closed, Amara felt drained beyond measure. She locked the door and walked home in the fading light, the chill of early evening settling into her bones. Alone in her apartment, the silence pressed in on her. The walls seemed to close tighter, the shadows growing longer. Tears began to well up, unbidden and unstoppable. She sank onto the floor, cradling her knees, the sobs shaking her fragile body. The hopelessness threatened to swallow her whole. Her phone vibrated softly beside her. It was a call from Malik. Her hands trembled as she hesitated, then pressed the answer button. "Hey, it's me." Malik's voice was gentle, steady, like a lifeline thrown into a stormy sea. "I just wanted to check in. You don't have to talk if you're not ready." Amara's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm struggling. I'm here. Take your time," he said softly. For the next few hours, they talked quietly. Malik didn't rush her, didn't try to fix anything. He simply listened, his calm presence grounding her as she bared her pain. She spoke of the dark thoughts, the crushing loneliness, the suffocating fear of never getting better. Malik shared stories of his own struggles, moments when he had felt broken but still found reasons to keep going. "You're stronger than you know," he said. "And even on the hardest days, you're not alone." By the time dawn crept through the window, a fragile peace settled over Amara. The storm inside hadn't vanished, but she felt, for the first time in a long while, like she could weather it. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, maybe healing isn't about never falling. Maybe it's about rising again, over and over. Amara sat by the window, watching the first light of dawn spill over the city skyline. The past months had been a turbulent journey, a mix of darkness, pain, and fragile hope. She no longer felt the sharp sting of isolation as deeply. The storm inside her had not vanished, but it had calmed. Her phone buzzed softly. A message from Malik. "Thinking of you. Keep going. You're doing great." She smiled, fingers trembling as she typed back a simple, "Thank you. I'm trying." At the bookstore, life felt more alive. She greeted customers with genuine warmth, occasionally laughing at a shared joke. Jasmine had become a steady presence, their bond deepened through honesty and care. One afternoon, Amara's mother visited again, bringing homemade food and a smile. They sat together, sharing stories and tears, mending the gaps that pain had created. Amara had started seeing her counselor more regularly, learning to accept the complexity of healing, that progress was not a straight line but a winding path. That evening, she opened her journal and wrote, "Today, I choose hope. Not because everything is perfect, but because I'm still here, still fighting. And that is enough." As she closed the notebook, a quiet strength filled her. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, it felt full of possibility.